One meal changed her life. Alien woman Marries, the human who saved her Zarakai, had never felt true hunger before that day on Station Meridian, and the hollow ache in her stomach was nothing compared to the emptiness she felt watching other species eat while she sat alone in the corner of the trading hub. Her people, the Valanis, were known across 12 systems for their pride and their crystalline skin that shimmered like starlight. But pride did not fill an empty belly, and shimmering skin did not buy food when you had nothing to trade. She had been stranded on the station for 6 cycles after her transport ship left without her, and the few credits she carried were long gone, and her family was half a galaxy away, unable to send help. Through the bureaucratic maze of interstellar transfer systems, the other aliens on the station ignored her, and some laughed when she asked for work, because Valanis were scholars and artists, not laborers, and who would hire someone who had never held a wrench or cleaned a floor. Zarakai sat on a cold metal bench near the food court and watched a Thrixian family share a meal, and the smell of roasted protein made her stomach twist, and she closed her eyes trying to remember the last time. She ate 2 days, and it had been 2 days since she found half a nutrition bar in a waste receptacle, and the shame of that moment still burned in her chest. She did not notice the human approaching until he spoke, and his voice was gentle when he asked if she was all right. Zarakai opened her eyes and saw a young man with kind brown eyes and dark hair standing before her, holding a tray of food, and he wore the simple gray uniform of station maintenance workers. She tried to answer, but her voice came out as a whisper, and she said she was fine. Though they both knew it was a lie, the human, whose name was Danny Carter, did not walk away, and instead he sat down beside her and placed the tray between them, and he said he bought too much food, and would she help him finish it? Zarakai knew what he was doing, and the kindness made her eyes burn with unshed tears, but she was too hungry to refuse, and she nodded and whispered her thanks. They ate in silence at first, and the food was simple, station fare. But to Zarakai it tasted like the finest meal she ever had, and Danny did not stare at her or ask painful questions, and he just sat with her like it was the most natural thing in the world. After a while, Danny started talking about his work on the station and how he fixed air filtration systems and repaired gravity panels, and his voice was easy and warm, and Zarakai found herself relaxing for the first time in days. She told him about her people and how she was traveling to the academic colony on Proxima 7 to study ancient languages when everything went wrong, and Danny listened with genuine interest and asked questions that showed he really cared about her answers. When the meal was finished, Danny said he worked the morning shift in Section C, and if she came by the maintenance office tomorrow around midday, he would make sure she got lunch again. Zarakai felt tears sliding down her crystalline cheeks, and she tried to thank him. But Danny just smiled and said friends help friends, and then he was gone. She went to Section C the next day, and Danny was there with another meal, and they ate together and talked, and he made her laugh with stories about the strange things people called maintenance for. This became their routine, and every day Danny brought food, and every day they talked, and Zarakai learned that Danny was from a place called Ohio on Earth, and he came to the station to save money for his sister's medical treatment. She told him about Valana, her homeworld, where crystal gardens grew in spiral patterns and music was considered a form of mathematics. After a week, Danny helped her find work in the station library, cataloging data files, and the pay was small, but it was honest work, and Zarakai could finally afford a sleeping pod and basic supplies. She insisted on paying Danny back for the meals, but he refused, and instead he asked if she would teach him about Valana's culture, and she agreed, and their lunch meetings became the best part of both their days. Weeks turned into months, and Zarakai's assignment on Proxima 7 became less important than the friendship blooming on Station Meridian. Danny showed her parts of the station tourists never saw, and the observation deck where you could watch ships come and go, and the hydroponics bay where earth plants grew under artificial sunlight, and the quiet corridor on level 9, where the stars looked close enough to touch. Zarakai taught Danny words in her language, and showed him how to appreciate Valana's music, and together they discovered that despite coming from different worlds, they understood each other in ways that mattered most. The shift in their relationship was gradual like sunrise, and neither could say exactly when friendship became something deeper. Danny noticed it first, and the way his heart jumped when Zarakai smiled, and how empty his days felt when station duties kept them apart. Zarakai realized it when another human woman showed interest in Danny, and the sharp feeling in her chest was not something friends were supposed to feel. One evening, Danny took her to the observation deck, and the stars stretched infinite before them, and he held her crystalline hand in his human one, and told her he loved her. Zarakai had been taught that Valanis and humans were too different, and that such relationships brought only complications. But looking into Danny's eyes, she knew her heart had already made its choice. She told him she loved him, too, and they kissed for the first time, and her crystalline skin glowed softly in the starlight. The next months were not easy, and Zarakai's family was horrified when she told them about Danny, and they said she was throwing away her future and disgracing their lineage. Danny's mother was more accepting, but worried about the practical challenges. And how would they navigate two different biology systems and cultural expectations and legal frameworks? But love had a way of making the impossible seem merely difficult. Danny proposed to her on the anniversary of their first meal together, and he gave her a ring made from a piece of crystal he found in the station's geology lab. And he said it reminded him of her. Zarakai said yes, without hesitation. They were married in a small ceremony on the station, and the officiant was a Centaurian captain who believed love transcended species, and their witnesses were the librarian Zarakai worked with, and Danny's maintenance crew supervisor. It was not the grand Valanis bonding ceremony her parents had imagined for her, and there were no crystal choirs or guang spiral dances. But when Danny looked at her with such love and devotion, Zarakai knew she had made the right choice. They found a small apartment on level 7, and Danny continued his maintenance work while Zarakai took a position as a translator for the station's diplomatic corps. Life was simple, but it was theirs. Zarakai learned to cook human food, and Danny learned to appreciate Valanis meditation practices, and they created their own traditions, blending two cultures into something uniquely beautiful. On quiet evenings, they would sit together and watch the stars and remember that day in the food court when a simple act of kindness changed everything. Danny would tell her she saved him too, and that before meeting her, his life was just work and loneliness, and she gave him purpose and joy. Zarakai's family eventually came around, and her mother visited the station and met Danny, and admitted that perhaps love was more important than tradition. 2 years after their wedding, Zarakai discovered she was pregnant, and the doctor said human and Valanis compatibility was rare but not impossible, and their daughter would be something special. They named her Hope, and she was born with her mother's crystalline skin and her father's warm brown eyes. Danny held his daughter for the first time and cried and told Zarakai that everything good in his life started with that one meal, and the decision to share it with a stranger. Zarakai kissed him and said it was not the meal that changed her life, and it was the man who offered it. She thought about all the things that had to go wrong for her to end up stranded and hungry on Station Meridian, and how those terrible circumstances led her to the greatest happiness she could imagine. Sometimes the worst moments brought the best outcomes, and sometimes being lost was the only way to find where you truly belonged. As Hope grew older, Zarakai and Danny would tell her the story of how they met, and how one small act of compassion created a family that bridged two worlds, and every year on the anniversary of that first meal they would return to the food court and share a simple station meal. And remember that love often began in the most unexpected places. Zarakai had traveled across the galaxy, searching for knowledge and ancient wisdom. But the most important thing she learned came from a human maintenance worker, who taught her that kindness was the most powerful force in the universe. She had been hungry and lost and alone, and Danny fed her, and in doing so he showed her that home was not a planet or a station, and home was wherever someone loved you enough to share their last meal. And that was a lesson worth more than all the academic achievements and family pride and cultural traditions combined, because in the end, what mattered was not where you came from, but who you chose to walk beside through the stars.